consciousness is sometimes hard to see. And yet, there are those who have the vision and see everything as being conscious. Rocks, trees, all the animals, even the planet. Oh, did I include humans in that? Now there's the question. The degree of consciousness that then actually registers as being conscious. And you see, that's part of the developing of awareness, that is, consciousness perceiving. Where I grew up, the many locations, I had the opportunity to experience a lot of different people. Some were farmers, some were craftspeople, some were professionals, and everybody revealed a certain sense of self, but also in that self there seems to be a distinction between self and others. So in that, I'm just simply saying there's this initial stage of consciousness that sees itself as being separate. And it is governed by behavior that is learned. And this behavior seems to pretty much carry over and dominate the choice making of the individual who is conscious. Now, I'm going to stop here and say this type of consciousness to me is asleep. Not sufficiently aware to be able to say, I make conscious choices, but aware enough to make choices according to programmed behavior. And again, I want to make sure everybody understands that when I speak of this, I'm speaking of someone who sees themselves as separate from. They may belong to a family, they may have friends, in that they have connection, but they still see themselves as distinctly different. And, of course, uniqueness is going to show through, but it isn't recognized necessarily as uniqueness, but rather is seen as I'm different. The illusion of separateness dissolves with the awareness of oneness. And while this may happen in a flash, more than less, it happens in stages and degrees of awakening. Humanity right now, the billions of us, we are an organism. We are all cells of an organism that is awakening to itself. It's hard to see that in some of the behavior that's being acted out right now. But then, if you saw in your program insert, it's much like the imaginal cells that are in a caterpillar that are actually the ones instrumental in transforming that mass of energy into a butterfly. Now, if it can happen on that level, and it does, then just look and see with the awakening that's taking place in you, the awakening that's taking place in me and others who are choosing to awaken, what a potential and a potent energy we're pouring into this organism, this superorganism called humanity. What we have the potential of becoming, but it is happening on an individual basis as we move away from our separateness and enter into a growing awareness of oneness. Whereas right now, someone cuts me off when I'm out on the freeway, I very seldom ever look at them and say, "There am I." Even if I give no gestures. My awareness is gesturing, which simply reveals my state of separateness in my own awakening. But more and more I am inclined to look again and see, all right, I'm not getting it completely, I'm not getting it entirely, but I'm beginning to wake up to the realization that there is this oneness that is inclusive. It doesn't mean just Christians. It doesn't just mean Muslims. It doesn't just mean the highly educated. It means all of us everywhere. So that in this, it's much like a state of awakening to where you get to a place to where you realize, all right, I, at this point, consciously choose to live the me that makes me genuinely happy, that I really feel good in living, instead of allowing myself to fall back into the default behavior of reacting and staying in a state of separateness. In this, you can see that there is a merging of consciousness that's taking place in you, with all the different varieties of you that show up from time to time, as well as me, as well as them, looking and seeing how, while we often only experience it in a personal way in ourselves, with ourselves, and then as the reflection of others mirrors it back, it is simultaneously happening to millions of us who are in this state of awakening and the merging of consciousness that is occurring with this. It's really, when you start allowing yourself to simply be present with it, it's really exciting. It's really thrilling to, at least with your imaginal self, step into a dimension where you imagine it happening within you, and to the greater degree that you are able to live your imagination. There have been those who have had this vision and have gone unrecognized, as well as right now there are those who have this awakening and are not recognized by others. All you have to do is step out there. Just step right out there. Walk around and tell people, I am an imaginal self who is awakening to myself. And in my awakening, I am actually experiencing a merging of consciousness that's taking place in me, and it is also spreading to the whole superorganism of humanity of which you and I are a part. I don't think I would get that far in the conversation. But then again, I may. It's not to say it's an impossibility. But what I'm trying to do is to help you to realize that this is a by degree experience that is occurring with those who choose to consciously engage in it. This isn't anything that's going to be forced upon anyone. But once you do get to a place, a certain level of consciousness, then you're going to experience your life from that premise. It's much like saying that somebody who's basically a decent person, they aren't trying to be there. They are there. So as you are growing in your awakening, while you may have put effort in allowing yourself to move away from who you are not, once you begin to experience who you are begins to shine through. It begins to live you as you are becoming. So, there's a big deal coming up tomorrow night, you know. Really big deal. The NBA playoffs. Okay. Now, this is a game within the game that is drawing attention of those who are game players and like to experience the ups and downs of the game. If you look at it, you see that it is definitely an expression of separation because it is pitting one against another. And it is deliberately stimulating those emotions, thoughts, and actions that reveal the state of awareness of game players. And I'm not speaking above you in this. I'm speaking across for all of us to come to a place of better recognizing how we are influenced, and deliberately so, to get us to stay in certain mindsets that are mindsets of separation, that are divisive by their very nature. Whereas again, if we allow ourselves to step back and get quiet, we find that we enter into a very different dimensional reality that includes a quieting, a calming, and evening, to where then who we are can come forth without the chatter determining the choice. So, I doubt very seriously if that's going to stop any of you from watching the game tomorrow night. And certainly that was not the intention of today's lecture. But simply to point out something that is very immediate and relevant, that can also be revealing. So allow a part of yourself between sips and perhaps commercials. You know, that's a perfect time to engage in calming yourself, oming a little, seeing if you did any damage during the game that you now need to rectify, so that we begin to open up and realize these are powerful times we're living in. And the reason they are is because we are powerful beings who are awakening to ourselves. And as we do, we're going to definitely find a merging of consciousness occurring within us and about us. Thank you for your attention. For more information about the Metaphysical Church of Enlightenment or the Rodin Foundation, please go to our website at www.rodin.org. If you have been inspired by the revelations shared in these podcasts, please donate to the Rodin Foundation's ongoing efforts to help others help themselves at www.rodin.org/donate.